DND number 11, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 3, Chapter 3. Violet ran down the long drive, the large motion sensor lights coming on as she neared each one. She could see CJ standing outside the gate in front of his pickup as she neared it. He was on his phone. The gate swung open, which startled her for a brief second, but almost immediately she recognized her father's work. CJ tucked his phone in his pocket, held his arms open wide, and Violet jumped into them. "Oh, CJ," she said softly as he hugged her hard and lifted her from the pavement. "Violet," he murmured softly before he set her down, lifted her chin, and kissed her soundly. He pushed her back, his hands on her shoulders. "Let me look at you." She looked up at him. "It's only been 2 weeks. I didn't change." "Well, maybe not, but you are a sight for sore eyes." "You too." She frowned and touched his cheek. "So, the case you were just on, was it a difficult one?" Her lips pressed together. His lips pressed together. "It was complicated. A lot of moving parts. There were 20 agents there to help protect 11 different people as the perps did the crime and the bus went down." He shook his head. "Jay took 2 bullets, one to the chest and one to the shoulder. We were vested, so only the one to the shoulder drew blood. He's going to be okay. No one else from AMT was injured. 1 perp died. 2 cops were shot, though they were minor wounds. We assisted at the arrest of 23 bad guys. We assisted with the arrest of 23 bad guys. All in all, it was a good 2 weeks' worth of work, and I am happy to be back." She nodded. She didn't dare say anything about the danger of his work. Her father was his boss. They both were used to the danger and the constant threat. It had been a source of several arguments, and it was the talk Violet had with her mother that had helped her to see that this is the work CJ had chosen, and Violet could support him or end the relationship. And she chose to support him like her own mother supported her father. Violet brushed her hand over the side of his face. "So, if it all went well, what happened here?" He shrugged, reaching up to touch the deep scratches on his face. "Well, I got into a little scuffle is all." He smiled. "You should see the other guy." She frowned at him. "Okay," he sighed. "A dude jumped out at me from behind a wall in the courtyard where we were escorting the innocents to get them out of the way. He had a broken piece of concrete in his hand. He got in a few licks before I was able to neutralize him. I'm okay, really." "And how did you neutralize him?" He frowned. "You don't need to know that, Violet. Stop." She sighed. He smiled, then turned and let down the tailgate on his truck, grabbed her around the waist and lifted her up onto the tailgate. Stepping in between her knees, he pulled her close to him. "I'm sorry I woke you and Rose and your father, but I had to come by and see you. And if your father wasn't my boss man, I swear You'd what? Never mind. So, Vi, I'm off this whole next weekend. Would you like to go with me to the fall festival? I promised your sister I would help get a few of the booths set up, and then I'm free the rest of the time." She smiled up at the handsome agent she was in love with. A little over 6 feet, seriously built, brown hair, hazel eyes, perfect features, gorgeous mouth. Sometimes he was so deadly and serious, and sometimes he reminded her of her brother, casual and happy and friendly and cute. Really cute. He had already told both her and her father that he was in love with her and hinted that he wanted to marry her. But they'd come to a lull in their relationship because she could not get him to open up to her about his family. She asked her father to give her the information, but he said if CJ didn't want her to know about his past, then she should honor that. He also told her it would be unethical for him to give her the information, which was another reason for the no dating the agents rule. If Violet was dating any other guy, her father would have no problem sharing the information he found, but because CJ worked for him, he couldn't do it. Thinking about it, Violet realized that whatever the problem was, it didn't keep CJ from getting on with Ameritech, and her father didn't forbid their relationship, so how bad could it be? Still, why wouldn't CJ share it with her? Why didn't he trust her? She brought her mind back to the question and nodded. I'd love to go to the fall festival with you. I promised to help you out at the end. I promised to help out at the end for a few hours. Fall festival's a big time for the city folk that come in, but then I can be there. Well, meet me at the Gabe Tanner Community Center at noon. She smiled. Sounds perfect. Leaning forward, he kissed her, long and slow. The kiss turned passionate, though, and suddenly he was pushing her onto her back and climbing into the back of the truck beside her, and he rolled over onto her, and they both looked up quickly as the motorized gate began to swing closed and then swing open again. He pulled up and looked down at her beautiful face. I think your dad is trying to tell us something. She giggled. Oh, he's never been known to be subtle. He pulled her up, led her to the passenger side, and put her in the truck. Sighing, he closed the tailgate on his way around to get into the truck. Violet watched him as he drove up the drive. He had that look again, the serious one, the one that made him look like he had the world on his shoulders. To others, it may seem like a hardened look, but she knew him, and she knew he was hurting. She just didn't know how to reach him or how to make him trust her, but she'd figure it out one way or another. New scene. It's October 23rd, Wednesday morning, South Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Jordan's eyes blinked open when she heard 3's phone alarm. She turned over to see him head to the bathroom. It'd been a rough night. She'd had to wake Eric up 3 times from nightmares. At one point, he'd cried, and they'd prayed together. He was feeling ashamed and saying he was being weak-minded. She wasn't sure how to respond to him, but fully intended to talk to Grandmaster Keno and tell him the things that Eric said to her. She glanced at the clock. It was 5 in the morning. When she heard the shower come on, she rose and went to freshen up in her own bathroom. She went ahead and dressed for school and then straightened up the room she'd occupied. She was leaving and wasn't sure when she'd be back. Setting her bag and purse out in the hall, she went back to young Eric's room. He was sitting on the edge of the bed and turned to smile at her as she came in. He was wearing uniform bottoms, and his chest was bare, and he stood and held out the gauze pads and tape. Can you help me? I'll try. He sat down again and watched her as she carefully covered the wounds on his chest. She was biting her lower lip, working slowly to make sure she didn't hurt him, but the wounds were already a lot better. Finally, she finished and looked up into his eyes with a smile. Good morning, 3, she said softly. He nodded. Good morning, 2-3, he replied. She frowned. So, why are you up so early? Well, it's beach time, or will be at 6. He grabbed his white t-shirt off the bed and pulled it over his head. She shook her head. But you're not supposed to be working out until next Monday. I'm not going to work out. I'm just going to stretch, do some tai chi, and pray with my family. She nodded. Okay. She sighed. Eric, are you upset with me? He frowned. No, of course not. Why would you think that? You seem different, maybe a little aloof. He nodded. I don't feel differently about you, Jordan. I love you, baby. I am feeling a little, I don't know, edgy, I guess. I think I need to work some things out on my own. She sighed. Okay, I guess I get that. So, Agent Trout will see you home this morning and stay with you until after your first class. By that time, your car will be back at your apartment. Do you remember the code to the key holder? She nodded. Yes. How are you feeling? I mean, physically today? Better. A little more energy. I'm on the mend. Good. She wrung her hands together. And, when will I see you again? Well, you are coming to the memorial, aren't you? She nodded. Yes, I'll be there. I'll see you on Friday then. She nodded silently. Her chin quivered. It's 2 days away. Sighing, he reached out to her and pulled her down to sit next to him, and then immediately pushed her back onto the bed and laid next to her. Just a few days ago, I thought I might never see you again. I love you, Jordan, with all my heart. I know I seem different, and I am in some ways, but my feelings for you haven't changed, and I hope yours for me haven't changed. I have a strong urge to show you that I'm not some sniveling crybaby. I want to show you that I'm still a man in every sense of the word, and I want to take you right now. Forget about everything else, everyone else, about our beliefs, about our goals. I just want to be one with you. But I know that's the darkness trying to get me in my moment of weakness. So I want to get you out of the danger zone until I can speak with Granddad and get these strange feelings and thoughts out of my brain. Please try to understand. She put her hand on his gorgeous face. I understand. Or at least I'm trying to understand. I love you three with all my heart. And I know this experience has changed you because it's changed me. And I may not be able to understand completely, but still, I'm here for you. And I still need you to love me. And I still look up to you, Eric, as the manliest man I've ever known. You have not gone down in my estimation of you. You've gone up. So, babe, deal with what you feel you need to deal with. I'm here for you no matter what, and I'll be okay. I think. And I'll see you on Friday. He gazed into her eyes, lowered his head, and kissed her for a long time, over and over, until he finally had to pull himself away before he did exactly what he told her he wanted to do. He rose and pulled her up. He started making his bed, and she helped him. Then they walked out into the hall together. He kissed her once more and headed downstairs. She watched him go, her heart aching to see him suffering emotionally, and hoped Grandmaster Keno will see him today. She started to gather her bag and purse when Taylor burst from her room. "Oh, well, good morning, sis," she said brightly. Jordan smiled at the endearment. "Hi, Taylor." Gabe then came out of his room down the hall. "Hey, Jordan, are you joining us today?" She shook her head. "No, I think 3 needs some time without me," she said sadly. Gabe frowned and then smiled kindly at her. "It'll take a few days to wrap his head around what happened. He'll come around." She looked at the young man. I guess you would know, huh?" He grinned. "Yep. Hopefully you'll never join the club." He looked at Taylor. "Come on, Tay, we don't want to be late." Taylor quickly hugged Jordan. "I'll see you Friday, right?" "Yes, I wouldn't miss it." Gabe waved, and the two charged down the stairs. Jordan stood there a few moments, smiling at the sweet energy that pair gave off. She blew out a breath. It was time for her to focus on her own life for a minute. Mr. Keno told her that what she could do for Eric is to take care of her own business. It seemed that he was right. It seemed that 3 had told her pretty much the same thing, just in different words. She'd been taking care of business before she'd met him. Then he stepped in like a knight in shining armor, but now it was time for her to show her strength again and take care of her own business. She looked up suddenly when the next to the last door in the hallway opened and Alec stepped out. He saw her and looked down immediately. Jordan smiled. "Good morning, Alec." He nodded. "Hey, so, I didn't know anyone would still be out here in the hall. Seems these people are early risers." Jordan walked toward him. "They are indeed. You want to see something pretty cool?" "Sure." "Is Desi awake?" Yeah." "Get her." He opened the door again. "Des, come out here a minute." Jordan smiled at her as she came to the door. "Good morning, Desi." "Hi, Jordan," she said. "What's going on?" "Come here, I want to show you something." She walked across the hall and opened the bedroom door. "Whose room is this?" Alec asked. "Oh, it's no one's right now," Jordan said. "I'm just going to show you guys what this family is doing right now. It's pretty cool." She led them across the room to the balcony door, opened it, and they stepped out. She walked to the edge and leaned her arms on the railing. "Look out there," she said softly. Alec and Desi looked out toward the ocean and saw on the beach 4 beautiful people, 3 guys, 1 girl, all moving in tandem. "Oh, is that like Tai Chi, right?" Alec asked. "Well, sort of. Right now, that's the Keno stretch. It's a series of stretches designed by Grandmaster Keno, Ricky Keno's father. When they finish that, they do the Keno form, which is really cool. It's like forms taken from several different styles of martial arts and then also taken from different levels, like the yellow belt form all the way through the levels to the black belt form, all done in one long form. It takes several minutes, and then they'll do a brutal workout, and then they'll stretch again, and then they'll all kneel in the sand and pray together. It's truly a beautiful thing." "And they do this every morning?" Desi asked. "Well, pretty much, unless something keeps them from it, like, Eric getting kidnapped. Yeah, I guess that would change things up, Alex said softly. So, how do you feel, Jordan? Desi asked. I mean, the story I heard last night, that's something. How do you feel about Eric killing your stepfather? She nodded. I only feel bad that he had to do it because I know it makes him feel bad. I don't feel bad that he's dead. I know that makes me sound like a monster, but really, he was the monster. I mean, he was going to bury them alive. My boyfriend and my sister, my little sister who was his own daughter. And yes, it was supposed to be just until they collect the ransom money, but the one guy told Eric that he intended to put him in a place where no one will find him. Peter Perez may have once been a good man, but all I know from him is evil. So I'm not sad that he's gone. It's between him and God now. They looked back out at the family. That's the Kino form, Jordan said softly. They watched until it ended. Well, you're right, Jordan. That was very cool, Alex said. I mean, from what I can see of it. Oh, that's right. Your glasses got broken. I'm so sorry for what you've been through. So, didn't you go to Hillcrest High School too? Desi asked. I mean, you just graduated last spring, right? And you live only a few miles from the gas station. But I don't remember you. Yes, but I went to North Hillcrest High. Desi nodded, and they stood in silence watching the family on the beach. So, doesn't Brianna Adams work out with the family? Desi asked. No, she's never been into the martial arts. She does her own workout. Alec laughed. It's kind of funny that the wife of the Ricky Kino isn't into martial arts. Jordan nodded. I said the same thing. But she is who she is, and he is who he is, and they are totally in love with each other, and they totally respect each other. I love their relationship. The three stayed there on the balcony watching the family work out, and when they all went to their knees, they still couldn't pull their eyes from them. Well, Jordan said, my ride is probably waiting on me out front. It was very nice meeting you two. I'm sure I'll see you again. Why do you say that? She smiled. Oh, because now that you've stayed here, they'll adopt you into their family. That's just the way they are. They are not going to patch you up and send you on your way. From here on out, they'll treat you like one of their own. Well, I guess we really lucked out, Alex said. Jordan shook her head. You didn't luck out. You were blessed. New scene. It's still Wednesday morning. Ricky was just coming in from the beach, pulled out his phone immediately as he was headed back into the house after their early morning beach session. Good morning, Joey. Hey, Rick. So your instincts were right on. Nick Sutter left his tent last night to go up behind the store and meet with two guys. They tried to hand him a package. The agents couldn't hear what was going down, but it was obvious that Nick was trying to turn them down. They started to rough up Nick, and our guys stepped in. The Hillcrest police showed up, the two dealers, and Nick himself ended up getting arrested. Ricky sighed. Well, what are Nick's charges? Mark says it's intent to distribute a Schedule I drug, namely heroin. Was he actually in possession of the package? No, he refused to accept it, which is why they were beating on him. Well, can we get him off? Maybe, but it's not his first offense. But this time he was trying to get out of the business. Right, and Mark says it just depends on the judge and what mood he's in, but there is some video from the store camera that backs up what he says. Okay, well, can we bail him out if we put him straight into a medical facility to get him clean? I think that's what Mark is working on right now. You get the facility name and address to him ASAP. Got it, Ricky said and hurried into the house. Bree smiled at him as he came in. Hey, Ricky, what you want for breakfast? The usual. I have to go to my study and get some information from Mark, but I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Is it something bad or something good? I'm not sure yet. But the guy, Nick, I was telling you I had to go back to Hillcrest and get today, he was arrested last night. So I have to call a facility and make sure they can take him and get the info to Mark, and we're going to see if he can be released into the treatment facility. 15 minutes later, Ricky emerged from his study and headed to the kitchen. Bree was just finishing up preparing his 3 scrambled eggs, topped with a mound of cilantro and a small bowl of blueberries and strawberries. Ricky kissed his wife. Good morning, my love, he murmured. Morning, she said softly as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Are Gabe and Taylor already gone? Ricky asked. Yes, they just left. I tell you, that Gabe can eat. Ricky laughed. Well, he's still a teenager. Bree frowned. Ricky? Let's have a baby. His brows shot up. What? You heard me correctly. Baby, you're 49 years old. Is it possible? Probably not, but like Mom and Eric have 5 new babies and they were older. Are you suggesting we get a surrogate? She sighed. No, not really. I don't feel good about that. Me neither, so I'm glad you said that. He sat down at the kitchen table, blessed his food, and dug in. Bree's eyes filled, and she sat down with him. Life goes by so fast, Ricky. My children are almost grown. What is happening? He reached up and wiped a tear from her cheek. Oh, sweetheart, don't be sad. I miss when they were little, too. He shrugged. You know, Eric's probably going to marry Jordan. She nodded. I know, and I think that would be wonderful. And that means they'll be having children. Bree sighed. Eventually. And that means you'll have grandbabies. She nodded. But Jordan is in school. She won't be having babies for a long time. Well, for now, let's focus on the present. Yeah, let's focus on my breakfast, young Eric said as he came back down the stairs, dressed and ready for the day. Did you hear what we were just talking about? Bree asked. No, is it something I need to know? She shook her head. No, it was a private conversation. Gotcha. He went to the fridge and started pulling out eggs and fruit and raw milk to use in his smoothie. Sweetie, let me do that for you, Bree said. He turned to put his arm around his mother. I'm okay, Mom, I promise. I'm so grateful that I can move around and feed myself that I really want to do this myself. Bree smiled and nodded and hugged him hard. Ricky finished his breakfast and put his plate in the sink and headed back to his study. I have details to work out. If you need me for anything, come interrupt me. Or, he said suggestively, just come interrupt me anyway. She giggled. Go work. He kissed her and left. Bree went to the sink. Are you okay, Mom? Young Eric asked. I'm fine, sweetie. How about you? How was your night? He shrugged. It was rough, actually. In what way? Nightmares. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I guess you need to talk to your grandfather. He nodded. I know. I will, he said with a sigh. Bree turned at the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Good morning, you two, Bree said cheerfully as Alec and Destiny made their way down the stairs. Young Eric looked up from putting supplements and fruit in a blender, and Bree looked them over. They looked a little better in their own freshly washed clothes, especially Desi, who had several cute outfits. Alec's clothes were older, worn, even a little tattered. As they came toward the bottom of the stairs, Alec misstepped and tumbled down. He jumped up quickly, his face red with embarrassment. Are you okay? Bree asked. Yes, ma'am, I'm fine. I guess I misjudged the distance. I guess so. Mom, he needs his glasses. They got broken when he got into a fight at the shelter downtown, Eric said quickly. Oh, goodness, bless his heart. We'll have to make an appointment right away, Bree said. Young Eric smiled. Every once in a while, his mom's southern ways slip out, and when they did, it was totally cute. Mrs. Adams, we don't have the money right now to get glasses, and it's Keno, Bree corrected with a smile. The world knows me as Brianna Adams, but my legal last name is Keno. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Keno. No need to apologize. Now, Mr. Alec Morgan, you were the senior class president at Hillcrest High School last year, correct? You graduated with honors, were the salutatorian, and had achieved a full academic scholarship at Stanford. Am I correct? He looked down, thinking she was pointing out that someone like that shouldn't be in his current predicament. Yes, ma'am. So that means you're smart. Smart enough to completely understand what I'm about to say. Alec and Desi, eyes wide, both looked at Brianna Adams because of the stern way she was addressing Alec. You must realize that money is not an issue here in this household. You probably know the estimated amount we're worth thanks to the tabloids. From here on out, everything we do for you will be taken care of by us. We have absolutely no problem with that. The only thing we have a problem with is you worrying about what little bit of money we're spending on you. We fully intend to get you on your feet. And later, when you're an attorney and supporting your family, if you want to pay it forward to help someone else, then do that. And I highly suggest you do, because being in service to others is what Jesus taught us to do. Anyway, after breakfast, you are going to meet with my husband, and he'll go over a plan with you, and you will be fully able to choose what it is you want to do with your lives, she added, looking at Destiny. There is a laundry list of things to immediately take care of, and 2 of those things are glasses for you, Alec, and an OB appointment for you, Desi. We want you to just relax and stop worrying and just breathe. Can you do that? Alec nodded. Yes, ma'am. It's just that, I'm feeling ashamed of the situation I find myself in. She nodded. That's understandable. Listen, sweetie, we all make mistakes. We all make poor decisions. All of us, including your own parents, and including me. Heck, if I hadn't been so stubborn about marrying my husband, we would have married years earlier, and I may have 5 children instead of only 2. Young Eric's brows lifted at hearing that, and he turned and looked at his mother. Was she wishing for more children? Was seeing Desi pregnant or Jeffy pregnant, was it making her want more babies? Now, Bree continued, come sit down and tell me what you would like for breakfast. Wow, young Eric said with a chuckle. You better take advantage of that, 'cause that doesn't happen often. She even offered to make my breakfast this morning. Bree smacked her son on the behind. Hush. I'm just saying, Eric added, because, Mom cooks dinner usually, and Dad helps if he's home, but breakfast is normally a free-for-all. I'm making my usual smoothie. Dad usually has a couple of eggs with some fruit. Taylor has already grabbed an egg sandwich and headed off to school. Gabe cooked himself like a full-blown meal and left for training. Take advantage of Mom being your short-order cook today, because it probably won't happen again. So, Bree began, what's your favorite thing to have for breakfast, Desi? Well, I do love French toast, she said. Alec nodded. French toast would be heaven right now. Bree smiled. Well, then French toast it is. She turned to young Eric. You drink your smoothie and go back to bed. Mom, I'm awake. I can't sleep all day. Well, I insist you try. Well, if I do, I won't sleep tonight. Before she could retort, he switched on the blender, making it impossible to hear for a minute. When it shut off, he emptied the contents into a large insulated cup, rinsed out the blender, left it on a drying pad, kissed his mother on the cheek, and smiled at Alec and Desi. Well, I'm going to go sit in the hot seat for a few. The hot seat? Alec asked. He grinned. The chair, right in front of my father's desk. Enjoy your breakfast. You guys are next. New scene. Young Eric peeked into his father's office. You ready for me? Ricky waved him in and finished up his phone conversation. Eric settled down in one of the 2 chairs in front of the desk. His father looked a little stressed as he spoke on the phone. He finally gave a nod. Yes, sir, we'll be there. He ended the call. Was that Granddad? How'd you know? Well, there's not many people that you say yes, sir, to, especially with so much reverence in your voice. Ricky smiled. You're very observant. Did you deduce anything else? Young Eric shrugged. You seem a little stressed out. You got that one wrong. I'm not stressed. Just in business mode. I got to take care of business, so I'm focused. But my son is sitting right here in front of me, so that just makes me extremely grateful. Eric nodded. So, son, how are you doing? I'm okay, I guess. Ricky shook his head. That was a bad question. Let me try again. How did you sleep last night? Young Eric gave a soft laugh. Well, not well. I had nightmares. Jordan had to wake me up, and that's bad because she's afraid to do that. Why? Well, she woke me up once, back when I first started training, and I was deep asleep, and when she woke me, I immediately put her into a chokehold. It scared her. I bet. Eric sighed heavily. I asked her to go back to her life. Ricky's brows rose. Expand on that, please. I don't want her to sleep with me. It's too dangerous, and also it's too embarrassing. Okay, let's tackle the embarrassing part first. Why are you embarrassed? Well, she woke me up from nightmares a few times. I was crying like some freaking kid scared of the dark, which I guess I am. Keep going. You were crying. Yes, and I don't want her to see that. I don't want her to see me so weak and vulnerable. The girl I marry needs to see that I'm strong and that I can protect her and that I won't fold when things get tough. And the side of me I presented to her last night was weak and ugly, and I can't stand it. It's totally embarrassing to have her try to comfort me and wipe away the tears on my face like she's my mother or something. When she does that, what side of herself is she showing? He thought, I guess a nurturing side. Ricky nodded. Yes. She's showing a side you want the woman you marry to have because she is going to need to nurture your children. Most women are nurturers. Their maternal instincts kick in. I spoke with Jordan yesterday before she joined you when you napped before dinner. She's worried about you. She hates to see you suffer, and she wants to help. And this is why she tries to hold you and wipe away your tears. She wants you to know that she loves you no matter what. She doesn't see you as weak. She sees you as injured. If someone is injured in a car accident, let's say they break their leg, do you think of them as weak? Do you look down on them because they're in pain and because it's going to take them a while to get back on their feet? No, sir. Well, even if that person sheds some tears because of the pain, you realize that's the body's defense mechanism, right? Yes, sir. Jordan is not dumb. She's a brilliant young lady, and she doesn't see you as weak or as a crybaby. She understands that you are injured, not in a physical way, but in a much harder way, because a cut on your face heals and fades. A cut in your mind, in your psyche, will always be there. You have to let it heal and stop the hemorrhaging and then let it heal, but the scar will always be there. It takes it a while before the hemorrhaging stops. Your nightmares are the hemorrhaging. They will stop. Jordan wanted to help because she loves you. And you're thinking the man she marries has to show strength. And she's thinking the woman you marry has to show that she can handle taking care of a strong man. She hurts, Eric, because you hurt. Well, I don't want her to hurt. You can't stop how others feel. But you can allow her to be what she instinctively wants to be. I told her this morning that I love her, but I need her to focus on her own life. Go to softball practice, go to her classes, take care of business. Well, you told her to focus on the present, on the business at hand, and that's actually not a bad thing. If people can learn to do that, even during difficult times, it helps them survive. But there is a fine line here, son. Don't push her away. Do you understand? Eric nodded. Now, there was something else you said a bit ago when you mentioned it was too embarrassing. You said it was too dangerous. Did you mean because she wakes you from your nightmares? Maybe. What else? He sighed. Because of how I cried, it makes me feel like not very masculine. Ricky nodded. Got it. Breaking down and crying can seem emasculating, and it would be if you did it all the time. But you have to understand, Eric, that what you went through was extraordinary, and it's okay to be shaken up by that and to shed some tears. Being taken, being held against your will, being restrained, being beaten while restrained, and having the threat that you will soon be put into a small box and buried in the ground with no idea if anyone will ever find you, and then having to fight for your life and having to actually kill people, to take their lives, to push that knife deep into Perez's chest and feel it go into his heart. Dad, stop. Ricky nodded. I'm just lancing the wound. He rose and went to sit in the chair next to his son, who now had the dreaded tears running down his face. Ricky reached out and placed his hand on his son's shoulder and looked into his eyes. This will pass, Eric. I promise. And your crying is not unmasculine. It's needed. It's cathartic. But I still don't understand, why is it dangerous? Because it makes me want to show Jordan that I'm still a man. that I may have cried, but I'm still masculine, and that makes me want to make love to her, and it's almost too strong to resist. And so I don't want her to stay with me. It's too hard, and I don't have control, at least not currently. Ricky nodded. Okay, that makes sense. And that actually shows great strength because you're doing what has to be done to protect her virtue and to live by your principles. Eric sat in silence and he felt drained. Ricky sighed. Well, Dad wants to see you today. He wants me to come with you to the studio, and I'll take over Gabe's training for the rest of the day, and he wants to have a session with you, and then he wants to travel down to Hillcrest and have a session with Josie when she gets out of school. Young Eric only nodded. When are we leaving? I have to speak with Alec and Desi first, and that will take at least an hour, so we'll leave around 11. Until then, go upstairs and rest. Yes, sir, he said sullenly as he started to rise from the chair. But first, let's pray, Ricky offered. New scene. Jordan's practice was rough. The coach pulled her aside for a short talk, and Jordan assured her that things would go back to normal. The man who had drugged her and was trying to hurt her was now dead. Eric was back and recovering quickly. She assured her coach that she was going to get back on track and into the swing of things. She'd walked off the field, and Agent Trout smiled at her. It'll get better now that all the drama is over, he assured. She sighed. 3 wanted me to go take care of my own business. Apparently, I'm not doing that very well. I can't afford to lose my scholarship. Colton came up behind her and hooked an arm around her neck. Give yourself a break, Jordan. Come on, let's go change. I'll be here until after your first class, Agent Trout said. Your car should be here by then, and I'll take you to it. After that, you're on your own, 'cause I have another assignment. She saluted. Yes, sir. He smiled. A few minutes later, she emerged from the locker rooms, and Agent Trout gave Jordan a ride to Kaplan Hall and walked her into her English class. And that is the end of Chapter 3.